here's an example of a shop. It's Boggins Fruit and Veg Shop. Going to do a bit of work now. I'm going to give you Boggins shop, and I want you to work out for me how many square feet it is in terms of zone A. So have everybody got an answer? Anybody want to say what it is? Right. So it's straightforward, isn't it? You've got zone A is 20 foot by 20 foot wide, that's 400. And then you've got 12 foot by 20, which is 240, but that's only worth half of the zone A unit. So you divide it by 2, comes out to 120. So it's 520 square feet in terms of zone A. Now, glad you're all still with me. Zone A is a wonderful thing, because if you take that last slide, you can see that this shop, because the shop window is there, and it goes back quite a long way, but it's got a zone A and a zone B. Sometimes the shop's the other way around. It's actually not very deep, but very wide. So there's the front of the shop, it's only 20 foot deep. It's all zone A. There is no zone B. The whole lot's zone A. And that means, if you multiply 20 by 60, it's 1,200 square feet of zone A. That shop was being charged a rent of £20 per square foot. It would be £24,000 per annum. If the shop was the other way around, if the front wasn't there, let's say the front was there, so you then had a zone A and a zone B, it'd be £10,000 cheaper. But actually, the shop has got exactly the same sales area, exactly the same. It's just got a bloody big window at the front. That's just the system. That's the way it works, and there's nothing else you can do about that. Now, there is one thing, though, that it works to your advantage. Basically, if you can't sell from the space inside your shop, then you don't pay for it. So here, for instance, we've got a shop that's got the zone A, got the zone B, but the zone C at the back has got a great big piece cut out of it. Well, you don't pay for that. So what you would do then is it's quite simply, deduct that from the total area. So it's 10 foot by 10 foot, that's 100 feet. So zone C is not 20 by 20, i.e. 400 square feet. You take that bit out, it's actually only 300 square feet. Which, if it was worth £5 a square foot, is £1,500. Now, not only do you take out bits like that you can't sell from, but if you've got some pillars holding up your roof, well, then you take those out as well. So this pillar might be 2 foot by 1 foot, you measure it, you deduct it. If you've got some stairs going up to the upper parts, maybe going upstairs to a storeroom or a stockroom, well, you take those out as well, because you can't sell from that. So that comes out. Anything that is on the floor that literally interferes with the footprint of your shop, they take it out. So, in this instance, when you're doing your calculations, that zone A, if I just take that back, sorry, that zone A there, you do 20 by 20, equals 400 feet, and you take out the pillar. You had one pillar in zone A, and you had another 2 in zone B. That's 2 foot by 2 foot, so there's 4 foot gone. And you take out the stairs, 8 foot by 2 foot, they're gone. That brings it down to 380 square feet. If that was being rented at £20 a square foot, that would save you £400 a year in rent, because you cannot sell from the stairs or the pillars. So that comes out. And you take out everything else as well that interferes with your ability to sell on the shop floor. Now, some shops, there are anomalies to this. Some shops have got what we call recessed entrances. This is a nice example in Bond Street, Aird & Co. This is another one, Badger, lovely shop, listed shop front, can't change it. And it's got this recessed entrance. And the idea was, in the old days, when people used to promenade, they would walk along and be able to walk into the recess to see more of the stock on display. The problem is that that's the front of the shop, that's zone A. So if you look at that, if you look at it in plan view, this bit here is part of the zone A. It's being paid for at £20 a square foot. The fact that it's outside the shop doesn't matter. That's where zone A starts. So recessed shop fronts, all very nice, but actually completely useless, because these days you don't really want people to promenade and walk in to see more of the stock. You actually want them to come into the shop and buy the stock. There's another anomaly as well, a notional shop front. You can see here, this is a shop in Gardner Street. You see how there's a line between the pavement and then this sort of concrete bit. That actually belongs to the shop. That concrete bit is not part of the pavement, it belongs to the shop. And as a consequence, the shop is paying for it at Zone A rates, even though it's outside the shop. So if you look, and also notice that it's recessed back from the shop in front. So what basically the system says is, there's nothing to stop that shopkeeper from pulling that shop forward. So that's where it starts. So why should the landlord suffer because the shopkeeper hasn't pulled his shop front forward? So if you look at it in plan view, there's the notional shop front, the little bit of pavement that actually belongs to the shop. So actually the Zone A doesn't start there, it starts there. And that pulls forward the first 20 foot back. It's not there anymore because that's 20 foot back from the inside. It's actually now moved back to there. And Zone B is pulled back and Zone C and so on. Now, those notional shop fronts, obviously the shopkeeper is not in a position really to pull down his shop front, move it 2 foot and then build something else on there. But the system says that that's what he has to pay. Some people have been quite clever about what they do with it. So he's a chap with a notional shop front. In fact, his almost certainly comes out even further to there. A bit difficult to see what he could do with it. He couldn't put stock on it, or he could, but not towards this end because it's too thin. This is a shop next door that's taken that notional shop front, and since they're paying for it, they've turned it into a feature that actually helps to promote the shop and advertise the shop. Internal walls. If you have internal walls inside your shop that are not ones that you've put up, not stud walls, temporary ones, but actual load-bearing walls, and they restrict the access to the rest of your shop, like this one does, well then the rules say that where those walls start is the start of a new zone. So in other words, Zone B doesn't go back 20 feet because these walls restrict the access. So in that case, Zone B ends where those walls are and Zone C starts. Now that could be quite useful because of course, although Zone B is worth half of Zone A, it's still worth quite a bit of money. Now, I do have to stress though, it's not, you can't just put in a stud wall and say, right, well, I'm reducing my Zone B. It doesn't work like that. It's got to be a structural wall that if you took it out, the building would fall down. There are other things as well that are anomalies in the rules. If you've got a change in height, like this, well then also one zone ends and another one starts. So if we look at this in plan view, there's our steps, there's our change in height. There's no wall. You can see from that last picture, there's not actually a wall there. He's put a little mezzanine up, but there's no wall. But nevertheless, that change in height, that substantial change in height means that Zone B ends where those steps, where the steps end, and Zone C is then pulled forward as well. And it doesn't have to be a big substantial change in height either, like in that picture. Here's another shop in the North Lane that's only got 3 steps. That's a sufficient change in height for Zone B to end and Zone C to start. Right, values of other floor spaces. Obviously, lots of shops don't just have one floor. They might have an office above, or they might have storage. Basically, if you've got first floor storage, well then it's the way it's valued is Zone A divided by 15. So if you're paying £20 a square foot, then your first floor office is worth £1.50 a square foot. Second floor storage is, Zone A divided by 10. Sorry, first floor divided by 10, second floor is divided by 15. If you've got shop floor storage, i.e. it's on the shop floor, but it is behind a door or behind a wall, then it's Zone A divided by 9. So if you're paying £20 a square foot, it would be £20 divided by 9. If you have got a shop floor office, it's zone A divided by 6. If you've got a basement, it's generally zone A divided by 12. But if it's a crap basement with difficult access, then it could be zone A divided by 20. Now, difficult access might be a trap door to get down into it, or not a proper staircase, ladders instead. If you've got a basement that's got less than 5 foot in height, it's not worth anything. It's value, it's nil value. Indeed, anywhere in your shop that's less than 5 foot in height is nil value. So if you've got some stairs going up to some upper parts, anything that's under 5 foot in height doesn't count, but anything under those stairs that's over 5 foot in height does count. If you look at the upper parts, if you've got here, they're quite clearly used as storage. You can see there's boxes in the window there that you can see. So this guy's storing goods on the first floor. If he was selling this floor, it would be more valuable. And it has been known for people that are selling from the first floor, when they have a rent review or a lease renewal, to take all the goods out and fill it with boxes so that it actually reduces the value. If those upper parts are let out, let's say they're rented, they might be a flat or an apartment, and they're rented, well then the landlord has the right to add the rent that you get from that flat onto the rent that he charges you. That's his right. And you can deduct that by 15% to act as a management fee, if you like, for looking after the flat. But the landlord is within his rights to say, right, you get 10 grand for that flat above your shop. I'll have 10 grand, thank you, less 15%. So if you have a shop with a flat above it, or an office with a flat above it, you need to think very carefully about how that will reflect on your rent. Right, so how does knowing the ITZA help? How does knowing the square footage of your shop in terms of zone A actually help you? It helps you because if you've got a shop that's got 400 square feet of zone A, and it's got 400 square feet of zone B, but remember, in terms of zone A, that's only 200. And it's got 200 square feet of zone C, but in terms of zone A, that's only 50 square feet. You know that you've got, this premises has got 650 square feet of zone A units. So we say it's got an ITZA of 650. Now, take your rent. You know how much rent you're paying, £25,000 a year, let's say. You divide your rent, your ITZA, into your rent. And that tells you that you're paying £38 a square foot, £38.46 a square foot, in terms of zone A. Now you can go to the shop next door, measure up their shop, and find out what they're paying in terms of zone A per square foot. You can go to any shop anywhere in the UK and find out what they're paying in terms of zone A. So you can compare your shop with theirs, even though your shop is completely different size, completely different location. It allows you to compare one with the other. Now, so how does that help you? Well, you will then be able to compare that to the going rate in the street. You know you're paying just over £38 a square foot. What's the going rate? What should you be paying? Well, who determines the going rate? Well, actually, you do. You determine it indirectly. Because when you have a rent review, or when you have a lease renewal, what you pay, or what you end up paying, will set a precedent. And that precedent will be applied to everybody else in the street. So, all you have to do is go along to the person that had the last rent review, or the last lease renewal, and that's just a question of going to the shops and asking. Find out, basically, which one is the most recent. Find out what they're paying per square foot. And then you know whether you're paying less or more. If you agree a rent that's too high in your street, that will set the precedent for everybody else, and they won't thank you. You will not be popular.